Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Lorraine Rise. Lorraine has built her career on the practice of coaching others to succeed. Her career began in the health and weight loss industry, coaching hundreds of clients to reach their weight loss goals. As a director and regional trainer for Jenny Craig, Inc., she has hired, trained, and mentored dozens of employees in the areas of sales, customer service, and management. After a layoff in 2013, Lorraine took the opportunity to make a career change into human resources. She has since supported the human resources and recruiting efforts at numerous firms in information technology, including Lockheed Martin. Lorraine still actively recruits within the intelligence community for integrated intel solutions. In 2015, she made another career change and founded UpRising. Now, her personal experience as a job seeker and professional experience can be put to work for you. Lorraine holds an MS in Human Resources Management, as well as certifications in Human Resources, resume writing, and career coaching. Lorraine has served well over 200 clients in over 30 industries, both public and private. Many of her clients come from some of the most recognizable firms in the country, including Microsoft, Amazon, Fannie Mae, Morgan Stanley, and so much more. UpRising LLC is located in the Washington, D.C. metro area, but serves clients all across the globe. Listen to Lorraine's inspirational podcast, UpRising, and listen to Lorraine right now. She's with me right here on Work from the Inside Out. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tammy. Happy to be here.
Yes, it's so much fun to talk to a fellow career coach and career professional. So, Lorraine, let's start in those early years of your career and tell us a little bit about those early days and how you made some of the transitions from those earlier days to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I graduated college, I think I had it all planned out, right? Or I thought I did. So I had decided that I wanted to go into health or nutrition or fitness in some way. I had an interest in that, and I actually got my degree in nutrition originally. So I was on a completely different career path than what I'm doing today, which is I'm finding very normal. There's so many people out there who start in one direction and then life takes you in another. And I'm definitely one of those people. So I guess I'm not really using my bachelor's degree per se in my professional life, more in my personal life. But so that's what led me to Jenny Craig. So I started doing weight loss coaching and felt like I was using kind of that health and nutrition background a little bit and felt good about that. And I stayed with them for over 5 years. And that was pretty much one of my first jobs right out of school. And I moved up through a number of positions. The company was good to me, and I have nothing but good things to say about them. It was a great experience. And, but I just kind of ran my course after becoming a manager and then more of a regional trainer. And I got to a point where things changed in the company, and along with many other people, were laid off. So life kind of forced me to make a move. Yeah. And so when I thought about what I loved the most about what I was doing, and I really thought hard about that and making a career change, because now I was forced to do something different. And so just like I do with my clients today, I kind of tell them to do a self-inventory and think about, isolating what do you want to do differently in this next position. I realized I did that with myself even way back then before coaching was ever on my radar at all. And when I isolated what I loved most about the work I had been doing, it was hiring, training new employees.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
loved. It was the functional side of what you
Yes.
were doing, because I could imagine that there must have been some part of you at that time that thought about maybe going to work for a Weight Watchers or some other weight loss or health or nutrition company with the nutrition degree, so you
Yeah.
went more for the skill sets rather than the content of what you were doing.
Yes, actually, that's a great way to put it. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it was. And I actually had already worked at another weight loss company very briefly prior to Jenny Craig. So I
Oh,
had, so that one didn't last quite as long, but yeah, so I had already really been on that track. And so, yeah, when I isolated what I really loved, it was not as much, although I was still very interested in the health and nutrition part, that wasn't what I was really coming to work for every day. It was my employees. Yeah, I loved managing people, training them, seeing them promoted. I had a number of employees who I brought in at the lowest level, customer service kind of reps, and they ended up becoming managers and having centers of their own. That was gratifying for me. So I thought, wow, I love the hiring process. I love giving people jobs.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what really prompted me then just to go into human resources. So I got a master's degree and I started to go more of the business route so I could be in HR. And so that kind of forged that new HR path, which then eventually led me to make a career transition again when I had more layoffs that came down the road, and eventually led me to coaching. Because again, when I thought about what do I love most about my HR career, I thought I love advocating for the employee. I love supporting them in their career growth. And this was just another way that I could then kind of reinvent myself and create another career for myself as a coach. So yeah, so that's the high level where I'm at over the last 10 years. Yeah.
So you get laid off from, I'm going to take you back for just a moment.
Yeah.
So you got laid off from Jenny Craig, and you're sort of sitting there with yourself saying, okay, now what?
Right.
And it sounds like within a relatively short period of time, and you're still in the younger part of your career.
Oh, thank you.
At that point, right?
Yeah.
And you're reflecting and you're saying, well, what do I love the most? You're doing kind of that self-inventory, and you realized it was more the human resources, that those functions, the supervision, the supporting employees, hiring and training pieces that you really loved. Not that you didn't love the other components, but it sounded like those were the things that were really speaking to you. Now, where did you go from there? I mean, I don't know if the layoff was a shock, because I imagine that some of the people listening here, might be wondering, well, was that a shock? Like, how long did it take you to kind of sort of come to that discovery? What steps did you take to then make some next steps? Were you compelled to kind of get another job quickly? Because I know that when I work with people who've been laid off, there's this sort of impulse to want to just get another job. And you said you went and got your master's in human resources. Like, did you go right into the master's from there, or did you get another job, or what were your next steps? And what was sort of the thinking that sort of propelled you into those next steps?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it actually was a bit of a slow evolution. So I did know, well, I didn't know, but I suspected that it was coming. I did have sense, months ahead of time, yes, that this was definitely a possibility. And I actually, even before all of that, I had already enrolled in my master's program and was doing it while I was working at Jenny Craig. So I had kind of had that wheel in motion just for my own growth and development one day, not sure, knowing what I would do with it, but knowing that was where the direction I wanted to go. So I actually already had that in motion. So I felt when I was laid off, I thought, well, let me just double down on my courses. I'm going to start doubling up, and I'm going to do more, and I'm going to graduate sooner. But I did have to get a job. Absolutely. So I can sympathize with people who, have bills to pay. And I had a young child with daycare and student loans and all of that. So I did have to return to work as soon as I could. So what I did, and this is something that I recommend sometimes to clients who they need that paycheck. They've got to get back to work fast. but they almost don't want to do it in a rush, like you said, because taking the first job you get can be a disaster sometimes. And I have experienced that myself down the road.
Yeah.
A few years
I
after
think
this,
we
I
all
experienced
have
that.
where we do that kind of
Yes.
knee jerk, that
Yes.
emotional, oh my gosh, I've got to get something. And
Yes.
we make a decision from a place of desperation versus
Yes.
kind of taking a little bit of time to think it through because we're so worried about draining whatever resources we
Yes.
have. Yeah.
So what I did is I connected with a staffing agency and I got a temporary placement. So so I was able to just commit to a 3-month contract to doing some recruiting and some basic HR work. And I'll tell you too, I had to take a little step back and pay because I was a manager when I left. I was not a manager. I was back to being an hourly employee, but that was fine with me because I had a baseline income coming in. I made new connections. It bought me an extra 3 or 4 months in my job search so I could take time to make it a meaningful move and continue to search. So it was a way to kind of take the first thing that came along, but not at the same time.
Right. Well, there was no major investment. It was 3 months. You had the master's degree. You had some other things you were doing to develop yourself.
Yes.
And it sounds like, and this is, I think, a big lesson for all of us, you kind of checked your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
And you did what you had to do. And I think this is also instructive. You had a young child, you had a family already. There were other things that were going on that you had to take care of. You had a lot on your plate.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, my husband was working, but his income was not going to be enough. So I needed to replace my income somehow. So I tell people a lot of times, if you're the line of work that you're in lends itself to staffing agencies and contract work or consulting or something, do it. Do it. And then it buys you time. It gets you engaged. It gets you out of that unemployed mindset that you can fall into. There's just intrinsic benefits to it as well, to just keep you in the process and keep you engaged. So that was a great thing. And there were times down the road where I engaged staffing agencies again in my career. I've been placed twice by them. So I think that can be a good thing. And luckily HR is one of those fields where that's pretty prevalent, that's a good option. It doesn't always apply to everybody, but that's what I did. I took action and I was very aggressive. I will say in my job search, I made it my full-time job. I applied to jobs every single day. And because I know that's what it takes. It takes massive action and commitment. In order to, and I was thrilled that I got that agency job within 5 weeks of being unemployed. That's it. Yeah.
And I want to also shine a light on one thing you said a moment ago about the fact that by engaging with an agency, you saw the upside to that too. So it wasn't, because I could see when somebody's been laid off or they're feeling a little down on their luck, it's easy to see where the glass is half empty. And it sounds like you're a glass half full kind of person in general.
Yes.
So hats off to you for that. But you also saw the chance that you might get placed in a job or a 3-month gig where you're going to make new connections. You're going to develop relationships with new colleagues. Who knows? That could have turned into a really good full-time job. A lot of times companies will sign up with an agency to bring somebody in for 3 months with the hope that that person might turn out to be a good fit and they may go ahead and then offer them a full-time role. I mean, I don't know if that ever happened for you, but I think that there's some times where that is the intention, or sometimes I know that, sometimes they just use agencies to fill in somebody for a maternity leave and there are other reasons. But, I think that I think it's important when somebody does reach that kind of a juncture where they need to maybe take a step back and look at things and perhaps even take a little bit of a pay cut to see where are the opportunities, where are the upsides, like expanding your network, dipping a toe maybe in another industry. So, for example, I'm curious where that placement was. What industry was that in when you went to the through the agency?
Yeah. So coming from some Jenny Craig, it was essentially considered, I guess, retail management, maybe a little step up from that, but it was the management of a retail center, right? So that, even though I had a lot of crossover into human resources, that was not considered human resources work. I essentially was considered as having this master's degree or in progress, but no actual HR work. So what I did is, so in taking that agency job, it was like an entry level recruiting HR type of job.
Yeah.
And I basically started at the bottom because I was entering with pretty much 0 years of experience. I knew I could do it. I knew I had transferable skills, but on paper, it really wasn't exactly the same experience. So that recruiting job basically was like my step in. That was it. I took a step back just to take a step in, keep collecting a paycheck, get that baseline experience. And I knew I would recoup back up to the level I was at probably within a year or two, not even that long. I just needed to get that initial experience to get in the door. It almost felt like taking an internship, which is fine, you know.
Well, I think it's look at where the possibilities or the opportunity might be, right? It's easy to look at the situation of, oh, it's entry level, I'm overqualified. And yet, maybe you needed a break at that point. You were, you've got a young child at home, you're doing a master's degree. Maybe you need to just kind of coast for a little while and just have a paycheck for a while. And yet, who knows, you never know who you're going to meet day to day when you go to a new position like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it required a mindset shift. Absolutely. I was more than happy to take an hourly starter job because it meant I was continuing to be employed. I was going in the right direction. Yeah. I was more than happy to do that at that time. So which is an attitude, really. It's just a mindset shift that you have to have.
Right. So. That's great. So then what happened?
That enabled me to keep going. So that opportunity led to another permanent job outside of the agency. Once I was done with that, I landed another HR job pretty quickly, but I got laid off from that one when the company was bought. It was a startup, basically a mature startup that got purchased. So I was redundant there, got laid off again. And then, so that brings us to when I did take a job, as we were talking about, purely just to take a paycheck. So I got laid off again from the job after the agency. And I found myself knowing I had gotten good at job searching. I had been doing so much of it. First of all, which is a big part of why I became a career coach, because I feel like I spent my 20s job searching. I felt like I just was hunting all the time. So, so I got good at it to the point of I had a job offer before my last day at this company that got bought out because I knew that was coming as well. I had a little bit of a running start again. So I got a job within weeks. I never even filed for unemployment. And I just took it. And all these red flags, just so many. It was just ambiguous. The interview was so brief. I got the job so easily. I didn't really know what I was going to be doing, but I ignored all of it. And I just took it because I was like, well, I'm going to be unemployed and I have a full-time job offer in my field, right? I just totally went for all of those tactical, logical kind of day-to-day things. And I ignored the intuition and the bigger picture. But I think that it was something that I needed to experience. I had never really done anything like that before. And I needed to kind of get knocked on my, you know what, I needed to learn
that, right?
Yeah. So I took it, and it's quite a story, but it was culturally not a match at all. Not a match for that environment, for my supervisor. I wasn't what they needed. They were not what I needed. I don't think they knew what they wanted in that role. It was very much just ambiguous. Like, what am I supposed to be doing every day? I don't think they needed a full-time person in that role, but they hired one, and it just was not a match. So I lasted 3 months in that one, and then I got let go from that. And that is when I said, enough is enough. I'm starting my company. And I did. In a flurry of inspiration, within 1 week, I had my website, my business registered. I had already had the seed from about a year ago of maybe career coaching, but it was just like a twinkle in my eye, And I didn't act on it because I didn't have a reason to. I didn't have anything urgent or profound forcing me to take action in something so non-traditional as creating my own coaching practice, right?
Yeah.
But I just, with all these short job tenures and layoffs, I just didn't feel confident, quite honestly, in the job market. I didn't know if I wanted, who's going to want me? I kind of felt like damaged goods. I was like, this is going to make it hard in my job search. How do I explain all this? And I just thought, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I just want to work for myself and create some stability that way. So I started my coaching practice.
Wow.
Here I am. That was almost 5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And and you've been through it all. You've been through it all. So, and I think that had things, maybe worked out with Jenny Craig, there would have been, you were with them for a few years, so it's not like you don't know what steady employment feels like, but it does sound like you kind of had the beginnings of a seed planted in your mind. You didn't just sort of leave that job and say, hey, I think I'll just hang up a shingle. It sounds like it was brewing within you.
Yes. Yes. Everything, even though I didn't realize it, every step along the way, every job I had, I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, but it's true. It was all preparing me for where I am today. And so much of what I learned at Jenny Craig for consultations and sales, I incorporated so much of that into my business. I mean, dialogue that I learned and sales, and I learned so much. And I realized, looking back now, that was really preparing me for what was going to be my ultimate destiny, I think, which is to be an entrepreneur, to be a coach, to be a teacher, but just all the things that I was doing before, but now in this completely different way. So every experience I had, every job that I got laid off from, it all is just part of my story, and it was all meant to be.
Yeah. And I think I want our listeners to know, my sense is that your decision to become an entrepreneur wasn't just a reaction to that last situation. Right. It wasn't a reactive decision. It had evolved, and it just kind of came to a head at that point. But it sounds like it was brewing within you. I think the other thing that I've seen with a lot of people I've spoken with through this podcast and in other things is that I think no one is successful in a vacuum. People, you have a spouse, you've been, through a lot of, sort of ups and downs and trials and tribulations, let's say. And I would make the assumption, and you can confirm this, that when you decided to, let's say, hang up your own shingle and open up your practice, it wasn't like you just decided for yourself and then you said, oh, hey, honey, I'm doing this. That there was a conversation, at least one, maybe more, where you decided as a family or as a couple that this was the structure, this is the way it was going to go. And because I know that I talk to a lot of people who are both, in couples where one person is self-employed, the other person is employed by a company or somebody else. And I know that there's a certain sort of set of dynamics that go on in different pairs or couples when one person is home on the more flexible schedule, the more flexible plan, and the other person is under the employer plan. So I'm making the assumption you had a lot of support to make that.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that I don't take for granted at all is that my husband was steadily employed and had health insurance and things like that, that certainly allowed me to take more of a risk than if I had, say, been a single mom or something like that. I definitely feel that I didn't have a lot of barriers that I could have potentially had. But having said that, I absolutely did have to make this work. I had a certain amount of maybe burn money or burn time to try and play around with this, but I had to produce income with this. We needed it. And it was not as simple as, well, I'm just going to create this company and replace my income, and that's it. I did, and it worked well. And I got my first couple of clients, and I was doing okay for a couple of months, but I had to return to the workforce. I want people to know it's not like it just worked beautiful straight out of the gate. And I just went one day to becoming full-time self-employed. I went back in and took another contract gig. That's when I worked at Lockheed Martin. I took another contract recruiting position for longer because I wasn't making enough income.
Yeah.
I had just, so it's not, I don't want people to think that like, you have to just get it all right the first time and go all in. You can dip in and out of the workforce. I've created hybrids where I'm partly doing my company and I'm partly doing maybe a consulting or a contract or a part-time.
Right.
Do what you need to do. Even if you're doing your quote dream part-time, you're still doing it. Right? You're still doing it.
Yeah.
And I saw it as going back to a job as a way to help finance me getting my company going again. And I reinvested some of that money I was making and building it up. And I did. Within 7 months, I built up enough clients again. I had to make a choice. I was going to exhaust myself if I continued to do both. I had to choose. And so at that point, again, with my husband's support, I walked away. And that time I did it. It's been several years that I had been full-time self-employed, but I've actually gone back into the workforce completely by choice now with more consulting gigs. I have multiple consulting gigs, recruiting and some other things. Right. And it's nice because now I do it because I want to, because I like it.
Yeah. And I think when you say going back into the workforce, you're doing it as a contractor. So it really is under the umbrella of your company.
It is. Right? Absolutely.
So for example, I do the same thing in my business. So one piece of advice I got many years ago when I started my business, it's been over 20 years, I was given a piece of advice that has actually carried me through, which is, find something that can look like a part-time gig that is sort of your baseline income, and then build all the other things around it. And in the kind of business that you're in and that I'm in, where we're doing a lot of one-on-one work with individual clients who do come and go, right? There's a cycle of how people come and go. It makes sense to have some other types of contracts that might last over a period of months, even a year, that give you that kind of foundational income, that give you something that you can count on, so that you can have that sort of tolerance of all the other fluctuations. Because I think as an entrepreneur, you do have to be tolerant of fluctuating income. Some people are not tolerant of that. And I don't mean that in an emotional way as much as just the idea of, some people like to know there's a certain amount of money coming in every month and they don't like fluctuations. Those of us who do the work we do have to deal with that or have to literally not mind that. So I think that it's not even a have to. I think it's an essential to really having a successful business, or to have, certain clients, who come back on a repeat basis, whether it's on a contractual basis or whatever it is. Because if we were to rely entirely on individuals for our income, there's too much volatility in that, I think, to really do things that way. So I think it does make sense to have either organizations or other types of contractual work that does provide a little more of an underpinning to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would definitely want listeners to know it's not all or nothing, right? You can make your work look like whatever you want it to be. You can make a hybrid. Exactly. I mean, I'm in a self-created career right now. I didn't go on a job board and apply for my job. Exactly. You can make it happen. You can do it full-time. You can do it part-time with a full-time job. Yep. You can do it full-time with a part-time job. You can do what you want to do in really whatever capacity, and make it look like whatever you want it to look like.
Right.
So and let it morph, let it evolve, let it change. I've changed. My company has grown and evolved in so many ways over even just in 4.5 years. And a lot of things are the same, but a lot of things look different. So I give myself that freedom to let it look like whatever I want it to look like at that point, keep it open.
Right. And that includes also, I think the other piece of that includes being able to manage the rest of your life in different ways as well. Yeah. So for example, I know that when you and I did our pre-interview, we had a certain amount of time we could do our pre-interview so that you could get off our call so you could go meet your daughter at her school bus, So there are things that, that afford you the ability to live the life that you want to live. So it's not just about making a certain income or all the practicalities of life. It's also about making life choices about the way you want to be a mother, that other full-time job you have, right? So I think that, everybody has different ways that they want to, handle all of those things. But I think about the job of parenting and wanting to be also a full-time professional, and how do you manage all of that? And this notion of work-life balance. The word balance to me means very little in this world. I think it's more of a blend. How do you blend that? How do you do that dance? And clearly, Lorraine, you're doing that dance, and you're showing us,
Thank you.
And I have this image of you over the years having a lineup of different kinds of pairs of dance shoes that you put on over the years to do that,
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that work-life balance is not something that we find, it's something that we create. And because we say the word find, I'm trying to find balance, but you have to make it. You have to create it.
From the inside out, right?
Yes, from the inside out. Exactly. And that's applicable whether you work for yourself or for someone else. I talk to clients a lot about when you have a boss and everything, setting boundaries. You create your boundaries and you can influence whether or not people respect those boundaries. So you create it. It's not just for entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
it's for everyone. But that one word makes a big difference, I think, in shifting your mindset.
So tell us about what your business looks like today. What kinds of clients you're working with? I know you're doing some contract recruiting here and there. And what other kinds of work are you doing? What does it look like? What else should our listeners know about your business?
Oh, well, thank you. So I work primarily with mid and late career professionals, and I do one-on-one as well as some group coaching. I'm going to be launching the second round of my group program later at the end of this year, going into the new year. So I do a little bit of group coaching, and I still do a lot of one-on-one, and I help people with career transitions, job searching, even broader life coaching, mindset, self-confidence, things like that. And I love that very much. A lot of coaches, I guess after a while they say burn out on the one-on-one, but I'm not. I really like it. So I make a fair amount of time in my schedule for it. I like it. I do still do some recruiting. I do that for a number of reasons. I wanted to stay active in the hiring process in the job market, so to speak, because I had those several years where I was doing well. I was full-time self-employed for about 2.5 years, but I didn't want to lose touch with what was going on out there. And I felt like it was my duty to really know about hiring and stay in touch with that. So it's been a great compliment to my practice to still be reviewing resumes and involved in that process. So that's a wonderful thing. And then I also do some work actually from on and off for LinkedIn directly. I do some contract work for them to help them kind of as an advisor, as a career coach, and kind of help them with some programs and things that they like to roll out for premium members. So I was approached by them to do that. So that was a wonderful,
that's fabulous,
unexpected opportunity. Yeah, that came my way. So that's what my business looks like. So I love helping kind of that older mid-late career job seeker.
That's great. That's good to know. And, of course, all the links to all the things you're doing in terms of how people can reach you and learn more about what you're doing, we will have all of that in the show notes. And folks, stay tuned because Lorraine has also invited me to be on her podcast. That's the other thing that we have to make sure people know is that Lorraine has a fabulous podcast too.
Thank you.
And it's called Career UpRising. So we will make sure that people are well informed about all the things that Lorraine is up to. So Lorraine, thank you so much for being on the show today. This has really been great. I love how relatable your experiences are and how much you have to offer your clients and the people you're working with, and how you're also staying on top of what's going on out there, because I do think that the only constant is change, and it's important for us in the field to stay on top of that. So thank you again.
Thank you as well. I appreciate it, Tammy. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Lorraine Rise. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her professional journey. What is your key takeaway from our interview? Is there something you'll put into action that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 058. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. If you were inspired by this episode with Lorraine, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at www.tammygoularloeb.com/podcast. Just click on the Apple Podcast button or follow the instructions provided there. Thanks so much for listening, and remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.